But if we go in without her buy-in at all, right? If we go in special forces, the SEALs, whomever we're going to use to do that combination, there has to be like this gotcha, almost like we got with bin Laden, because that was our bargaining chip to Pakistan and really the rest of the Arab nations, that this was not an act of war. Like, you harbored bin Laden. Like, what are you going to say about that? So I think that that's how that has to look in Mexico.
You're in the space of the government for so many years. I think you kind of have a pulse on what the thought process might be. But what are your thoughts on us having potentially our special operations going into the country and potentially helping dismantle the cartel? You've done this in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know what that looks like. I've done it firsthand as well. I know what that looks like. What are your thoughts on that going into Mexico? Is it do you believe it's a good decision or bad decision?
Okay, that's tough. So I get asked that almost every single weekend on News Nation when I'm on air for them.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And I actually was on with, I don't know if you guys know General Wesley Clark. I was on with him. And I think he and I actually like both, I don't know, completely agreed, but like somewhat agreed that if we ever go in, if we do, it needs to be special ops, right? Like, it cannot be, or CIA Special Activities Division. We are not going in there, full army troops. That's not what's happening. But we have to be very, very careful, because then the question is what if, right? Because like, let's look at Pakistan, for example, Abbottabad, where we got bin Laden. I don't think people realize, but like, had we not caught him, it would have been an act of war. We invaded another country covertly, right? But we caught bin Laden. So we technically, I don't know how crass I can be, but we caught Pakistan with their pants down, right? And so they really had no other choice but to be like, it's okay. It's fine. We won't strike back. Yeah, we're sorry, right? Like that's what happened there. I think we have to have that same motivation with Mexico, which I know sounds terrible, but there has to be that, or we have to get their government's buy-in to do it, which I don't think is going to happen. Shy Mom has said multiple times that she would not allow it. I don't know if she's going to change her mind. But if we go in without her buy-in at all, right? If we go in special forces, the SEALs, whomever we're going to use to do that combination, there has to be like this gotcha, almost like we got with bin Laden, because that was our bargaining chip to Pakistan and really the rest of the Arab nations, that this was not an act of war. Like, you harbored bin Laden. Like, what are you going to say about that? So I think that that's how that has to look in Mexico. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I've had several guests that believe that there has been in the past, 5 years, several covert operations that has already happened in Mexico. Would you agree to that?
Yeah. I would agree to that. I think that they've probably been done well, or to be honest with you, we don't know how much the Mexican government was okay with it, right? A lot of times what will happen, and that we saw this in the war on terror so many times, is countries would say, yeah, you can come in and get this person, but we don't want to know about it. And we are going to say it never happened, right? And so that's very normal, right? Because other countries don't want to be like, yeah, we let the US come in and like kidnap a terrorist off of the streets. It doesn't look good. It's not a good look. But I would think that something like that absolutely has happened in Mexico. And I think, based on my experience, the government was probably okay with it.
Yeah, in hearing that, President Claudia Sheinbaum might not support us going in makes me feel that there's some kind of tie to the cartel, which we know most likely when you get that high in political position in Mexico, there is involvement of some kind of like thumbs up by the cartel. And so I think that's the big fear that I think you're having there, which becomes a very slippery slope for her in the sense of like, how much will she allow? And at some point, is the cartel going to be upset that we're even allowed to fly drones? You know what I'm saying? Is that going to affect her presidency? Crazy times. So go ahead, please.
No, I don't think the drone flights will affect her presidency. I think covert ops will, in my opinion.
We had another guest in here, and I'd love to hear your opinion on what you think if his statement is close to true or not. It became a big discussion, but one of the individuals who worked close with the Sinaloa cartel, sorry about that. One of the individuals who worked close with the Sinaloa cartel and spent 20 years in prison said that it is known without the higher echelons of the drug cartels that the CJNG has hired former special operations individuals to help train them and actually currently kind of help run their organization. Through your time in CIA or FBI, is this kind of a common knowledge thing, or is it just kind of a rumor that has not been able to be proven yet, or any knowledge of this at all?
No, I'm just trying to figure out how. Sorry.
The long pause says a lot.
No, listen. Because part of me gets really mad at people like that. If to be completely honest with you, like, what are you doing? You're just selling out for money because they're probably paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, for these individuals to do that. These are probably retired folks or folks that left, in good standing that are now engaging in this. And so, in my opinion, you are just as not you, but really those that engage in this are just as much responsible, right, for the problems. As the cartels themselves. So I'm actually trying to not be like overly mad when I hear about people doing that. In my opinion, and again, I'm not trying to be like Pollyanna, CIA is not perfect. That's not something I ran into when I was there. Again, our military, the British military, multiple other special operations units in different countries work to train other countries, right? But not their terrorist groups and their cartels. So that's what I heard the more of, right? But not training cartels. It's not to say it wouldn't happen. You have these unpatriotic people, in my opinion, that are engaging in that behavior for simply money.
Yeah. I mean, in the amount of money they would pay them, I imagine, is way more than what.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
The other thing is, we have to acknowledge that we're the ones who trained Los Zetas original,
yes.
right? Gafe, we're the ones who trained them in efforts to hopefully counter this drug epidemic that was happening and turn around. It kind of bit us in the butt. And you know what? Now we're training some again, which is very interesting. What do you think about that personally?
I mean, again, and I hate to keep relating it to this, but I just wish more people would, because it's the same. It's the Taliban, like all over again. We're literally doing the exact same thing now, like that we did in the 80s, right? Like that's what happened. And so I don't know why we don't learn from those lessons. It's incredibly frustrating that we keep doing the same thing over and over. And like, it doesn't work. It's not successful. So I'm not sure why we're repeating it again. But again, we trained the Taliban, right, in the 80s. Then we fought the war on terror to put them down. And guess who's back again, right?
Why do you think we made that decision to start training them again?
The Taliban, so what we were doing with the Taliban in Afghanistan was we weren't necessarily training the Taliban again. We were training those that were kind of pro-democratic groups, right? But obviously we all know that didn't go well, and the Taliban took back over. So now they have all of our stuff, all of our weapons, all of our tactics that we just sort of like left there, right? And so the same thing, in my opinion, is going to happen in Mexico. I don't know why we keep repeating like this policy of doing that, but no one cares what I think, I'm sure.
You have the platform today. Say what you want. It's interesting to me how it's not the cartel's involvement with all kinds of different things. We know that they're involved in avocados, some kind of legitimate / non-legitimate like efforts of making money, but as well as marijuana. We've heard some that is part of methamphetamines, and then as well as now fentanyl. Fentanyl became the thing. We're focusing on fentanyl, and is it me, or are we just using fentanyl as something that's going to calm everyone down? And then once we shut down the fentanyl, business as usual, we let them continue just to do their thing? Because that's what it feels like from my position. It feels like we're using it almost like as a political gesture and not so much legitimately wanting to go in and dismantle. Because I feel like we could completely dismantle the cartel if we needed to in a few weeks if we really went gung-ho blazing. But it feels more like this is a political tip of the cap. We said we were going to do it. We did it. Now let's move on.
I hope we don't move on, because if you want me to be totally honest with you, so again, people don't seem to care when I talk about this, but if we really wanted to go after fentanyl, like if we were really serious about it, because that's why I don't think we're serious about it, but if we were really serious about it, we'd go after China. That's where the raw chemicals are coming from, not Mexico. It's being manufactured in Mexico, but we're not going after China. So if the administration was serious, right, about fentanyl, if they were, they need to be going after the raw materials. And those raw materials all come from China. The Coast Guard has intercepted them, right, coming into. So I don't think we are serious. If you want me to be totally honest with you, I do think you're right. This is probably a political issue. But I don't know that it's ever going to be solved, right? Because again, if we don't go after the raw materials, literally, what is the point? China will just find another place to make it. So sorry if I sound so like pessimistic, but like, let's be blunt. Like the raw materials are coming from there. We're doing nothing about it. The Coast Guard has intercepted them. It's going to Mexico for finishing, right, and distribution. But like, we're just harping on Mexico. That's what I don't understand.